Hello, and welcome to a very special episode of heART Talk. I have been doing these heART Talks live from my home, which we affectionately called Henna House BK here in Brooklyn. And today, the other half of Henna House BK, the beautiful, talented, and extremely dedicated artist Natalia Zamparini, will be joining us from the other half of the house. We have a lot to talk about, and she has a lot of wisdom to share. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in Naty by Nature so we can start today's conversation. Hello, those of you who are jumping in, and welcome to heART Talk. It's a weekly conversation with different artists. Hello.
Hello.
How are you down there, downstairs?
I'm good down here. How are you up there?
Doing good. Great background, and those of you who
Thank you.
This is Natalia Zamparini, aka Naty by Nature. You are my roommate, you are an artist, you are many things. So I want to just get right into it. Tell us a bit about your background and your origins and how you came to New York.
Yeah, so I go by Naty or Natalia. Naty is my childhood nickname, which was given to me by my family ever since I was a kid. I was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and we moved to Queens, New York when I was 6 months old. So I've been raised in New York City pretty much all my life for over 3 decades now. And I am now in Brooklyn for the last 3 years. And a big part of that has been here at the henna house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I say this to others, but you coming into this space has really made it into a home. And we're going to be talking a bit more about what we do here at Henna House, but we have to learn more about how you became the artist you are today. So, what are your earliest memories of art and creating?
So I'm really grateful for my mother partially being a hoarder, because ever since I was around 5 years old, pretty much around the time that I started school, she started saving my artwork. And for me, that was really impressionable later on when I was in the process of choosing what I wanted to study in school. And that started all the way from junior high school. So always really falling in line with art and going back to thinking, oh, my mother saved my art. That was really something to me that always stuck out as something I did or something I always did. So my introduction to art was really from very young, from macaroni art. And in junior high school, I tried to get into the art program. In high school, I was in the art program. In college, I studied graphic design and fine art and have a bachelor's degree in that. And then afterwards, from graduating college, I did a lot of corporate jobs and non-corporate jobs. And funny enough, they were always paralleling creative roles. But I eventually transitioned to really realizing, oh, you know what? I have a degree in this. This is exactly what I should be doing. So I ended up pursuing my passions about 6 years ago now.
Yeah, it's funny how we look back and sometimes see how that common thread has been there. So maybe this for this next question, how long have you been Naty by Nature? What is Naty by Nature?
So when I had a lot of resistance joining Instagram when it first came out, and it was part of my reason in joining. Actually, I was recovering from a lot of physical sports injuries and surgeries that with it. And so it was a big part of my healing in regards to physical. But then I also started sharing my art on there. And it was either going to be Illuminati or Naty by Nature. And yeah, and Naty by Nature came about and actually makes a lot more sense now because a lot of my inspiration in my art is nature. And a lot of my passion is nature and studying the nature of people. And I always say that while nature can teach us so much, it's teaching us so much about the elements that we are. So I'm so grateful that I not only get to paint things that remind me of nature and that I receive from people, but also I end up utilizing mediums that come from nature as well. For example, like henna
Yes.
and
Yeah.
hagua.
Yeah. And those of you who are jumping in, some of you already know Naty. And if you don't, the range of mediums and art styles that Naty is capable of expressing through is wide. And so we're going to get a peek into that with some of the visuals. But I love how you shared you're inspired by nature itself, but also the nature of people. And henna as an art is an ancient practice of connecting to folks. So,
Yeah.
what first drew you to henna? And as you explain this, I'm going to show some examples of your henna work.
Absolutely. So funny enough, I think there's something really so beautiful and special that I got in being raised in New York City and in Queens. So ever since I was actually a young child, where the neighborhood started transitioning from one culture to another, I was introduced to henna from when I was really young. And then in school, when I was studying art and thereafter when I graduated, I always had friends that believed in me before I knew what I was going to be doing. And they said, "You're an artist. Here, do henna." And I did not know anything about it to the extent that I know now, but I was so intrigued by it. And it kept coming in for the last 11 years, and the first 5 being the in and out. And again, just not thinking anything about it, just people were saying, "Here, you're an artist, do this." And at the same time, I wasn't really doing my art professionally or full time yet. It was always something that was emotional coping, or maybe a friend asked me for something. It wasn't really coming from within me. So when I transitioned into really asking questions, what is my purpose? Why am I here? It stemmed a lot from losing my mother, being unfulfilled at these corporate jobs that I was, 2 to 3 years in, and thinking, well, why am I here? And all of a sudden, around December 2014, I had my awakening, and I realized that art was the answer. And within less than a month, as I start really just immersing myself into it, I see henna again. And I think to myself, wow, I remember how to do that. I also don't know why I stopped it. And I went upon this journey that said, and there are hashtags along the way that said, fighting fierce for life, fighting fierce for freedom, things like that, that who tells us we can only be successful at one thing or in one place? And all of a sudden I'm starting to realize, wow, there are artists, there are creatives, there are business owners who told me that those things weren't really successful realms. And so I started diving into those things that scared me. And that's how henna showed up. And I said, I'm going to give this a try. And from that moment on, I said, I'm going to learn this from its source, really the history, the origins, the whys, the hows, the multiple cultures that have been using it for thousands of years. And that's how it ended up actually being the spark that took on faster and stronger than my other arts, which is not a bad thing, because the henna became this magnet and a portal for growth and growing my network that allowed me to share other art forms.
Absolutely. I mean, you connect so intimately with the person. If you've never had henna before, the traditional way of doing it is for the artist to really tune into the energy of the person receiving the henna. It's a gift, it's a blessing. And so, with that, henna is something I've grown up with, and I love how much I've gotten to learn about it from you and how thoroughly you studied it. So, that's something that I know is a challenge you've encountered. So, what, in, let me just find exactly, what criticism have you faced being perceived as someone who isn't necessarily from a henna culture, and how have you corrected that?
I don't know if I would say corrected it, but more so really holding a lot of empathy and also education, because not everyone knows that it has such a vast history. And so when someone is saying, "Oh, this is from my country, we do this," it's not wrong, but at the same time, maybe they haven't sat down to learn how old is it, where did it really start, and then you start seeing that it's actually from multiple cultures. And if you really are looking at a geographical map, you'll see that it makes a lot of sense why in agriculture a plant would grow here and it would grow here and it would grow here. So then when you look at India and you look at Egypt and Morocco and Algeria and Turkey and Greece, it makes all the sense why it was used in all these regions all those times ago. So it's funny that I will receive that so often as I'm doing the art, and people are saying, "You're not Indian. Why are you doing this?" I'm like, "You see, I'm doing it. I don't know what to tell you." But I always really, it's the biggest thing is any form of emulation, or even when we say cultural appropriation. Are we doing it with respect? Are we doing it with understanding and knowledge? I've sat down and I have countless hours and days and weeks and even years now of still researching and learning from this art form. And so I'm always learning. I will always be a student. And so when someone tells me that, absolutely, I acknowledge it. And then I say, and also it's from these places. And when I sit down and have looked at my ancestry, not only has it been something that really resonates with my spirit, but it actually resonates a lot with my ancestry. So while it's not directly from Argentina, it goes further back to my ancestors that trace back to Turkey and Greece. And so then when I look at the history of this art form, then yes, it does connect to me, but also it connects to my upbringing. So I grew up in Queens and have seen this in my friends. And so it's a bigger part of my surroundings, not only where we come from.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. I mean, some of the traditional ways that henna is used is around religious ceremonies, weddings, festivals, and here are some examples of your wedding mendi, mendi being the one of the traditional words for henna. Um, what is the intention when you are doing henna for a wedding?
I really, when it comes to my clients, I really love asking, what do you like? What do you not like? And I always aim to please and make sure that they're happy, because so much that I love free range and really flowing with my intuition. And that's something that has progressed and evolved over the last 5, 6 years when I went professional. I still am working in a hospitality field. And so I need to make sure that the person's really happy with those things. So I'm always, show me images that you like, tell me what you don't like, and we go from there. And so when it comes to Mendi, like you said, the traditional form of wedding henna, and even in Indian and Pakistani culture, there are traditional elements, there are traditional motifs that trace back to certain regions. And we always try to incorporate those, or I make it a very modern bride, a bride that's going to be in a biracial marriage. And I think it's so beautiful because more and more of those are coming into my life. And then we really bring in all these Western elements. Maybe architecture becomes part of an inspiration. Things in nature become part of an inspiration. Things between the couple that are memories for them of how they met, the elements that really define them. So you have these discussions all beforehand from when you meet, and you really go in with a plan. And so that's a big part of a lot of my work, is really sitting down and having these questions and conversations to really prepare for that next part, where flow is a big part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I think is brilliant about your work is that you have such a respect for the ancient practice, but you've used henna in other art forms and unique ways that I've never seen before.
Awesome.
So yeah, you're resilient and you're an entrepreneur. Henna is wellness and arts and hospitality. So with that being said, what are some of the projects you developed this year? This being such a unique and trying year for artists working in the gig economy and hospitality industry. Mm-hmm. How have you pivoted?
So one of the biggest things for me, while it is all of those things, is also a huge form of meditation. healing. And when I think of wellness, it's not only those two things, but also wellness in our health and our self-care. So not only does it help me in slowing down my breath and taking care of myself and pay attention to my body, but also how do I tie that in to our day, you know, our day to day. So as everything was happening and a lot of my work was really just disappearing before my eyes, understandably so, for safety reasons, I said, I'm an artist, and this is where I really bring in a lot of practicality into my art. And so, does it make sense? Does it have a purpose? And so I actually started painting masks. And the interesting thing was that I wasn't really seeing too many masks being painted or too many creative masks. It was just a matter of we have to wear them, we have to go into them. And how can I actually promote that message of self-care and paying attention to ourselves, but also have fun with it? Because I mean, I was definitely freaking out and I needed something to keep me positive and to keep me focused. And if my art with people and all those gigs were those areas for me, then how was I doing that alone? And not only am I painting on canvas, but I'm utilizing materials and tangible items and practical things. So the masks were the first things I dove into in my pivoting efforts during that time. And I'm so grateful because we spoke about this early on. It was really a matter of civic duty, kind of a great way to connect with what's going on. How can I help? I'm promoting the message of take care of yourself. This is serious, you know. While everyone has different levels of, you know, our immune system, not everyone was able to survive such a strong virus. So sometimes it's more so thinking of each other, being considerate of others, the empathy, the compassion. How do we tie that in? So art becomes such a great spotlight to talk about issues in our day-to-day. Muralists do this, graphic designers do this, fine artists do this, etc., etc. Even culinary artists, and they use their art to speak about issues. So that's one of the first things that I definitely was doing, and I'm really grateful and proud of myself for doing that too. And thanks to you as well.
Yeah, those of you who are watching, these masks are still, Naty is still creating them. This was also a collaborative effort between us, which was exciting for us to collaborate artistically. And that is just one example of
Right.
offerings that you give to the community and how you're thinking about how to take care of others through your art. So it's also an example of how you fused an ancient art with a modern, with a
modern touch.
Yeah, a modern touch. So what are the other ways that you have fused the ancient art of henna with culture, Western culture today?
So some of the other things in my pivot, as well as combining two different ingredients per se, are and with a lot of time quarantine really gave us, I'm super grateful for that time and space to actually sit with myself, but also sit with my projects and this huge to-do list that has been building for a long time. And so not only have I designed on cupcakes and cakes and frames and canvas, paper, I've also collaborated with other artists and have designed on bags, on the masks, gift boxes, for clothing companies. There are so many ideas that I even forget some of them. But I really do believe in the aspect of collaboration. So while it may not have been some unique material, it was also the unique opportunity to come together with another creative, another entrepreneur, another person of color, another woman. And so I received these amazing opportunities to work on different projects besides the body, while the body is also very well a canvas.
Yes.
And with that additional time, I also got the opportunity to really sit down and develop this product that I was doing casually on my own and sharing with friends. But friends have always been this amazing supportive circle for me and believed in me before I even believed in myself. And so I am a huge fan of live music, and every time I would go to these outdoor concerts and the mosquitoes get to you, while I'm also really passionate about nature and health, I really am very passionate about using natural products and not damaging not only our internal but also our external, our biggest organ, our skin. So I started making this bug spray, and then I had enough times of affirmations of people telling me, you got to make this into a thing. So okay, let's make it into a thing. And so earlier this year, I finally like sat down and developed Bug Buy with almost all organic essential oils and oils themselves, all sourced with a lot of research and looking at what does this oil do? What does this oil do? And together it all came, and I've been also sharing that product, as well as a wellness kit that I was working on earlier this year, where I said to myself, well, not only am I losing some work, but I saw my friends losing their work as well. And so I found a way to bring in different makers and creations and create this kit, and I got Save Your Sanity Well kit. So it was really fun to work on that stuff, and really also in the back of my head, it was I'm helping other people as well. It wasn't just myself, but the feedback that I got from it was really nice. And it feels really good. It made me feel great. I love the smells. You know, it keeps me active. It keeps me positive. So even things like the bug spray, it smells great. It's good for me. It's working. So I feel like always like these are things that are constantly a step towards my purpose. Things that how am I helping? So all those kind of products are always like things with positive intentions underneath them.
Yeah. And I think it's special when an artist does every step from the conceptualizing to the making. Okay, we are back to continue our conversation with Natalia Zamparini, Naty by Nature. Thank you guys for coming in. We were just discussing her entrepreneurial spirit and the ways that she's developed different products to serve the community through various modes of art. And we will go ahead and get it right. I know people were engaged in the conversation. Okay, we are here. Hello, thank you. I'm going to shoot it back out to folks who are in.
Sounds good.
So we were discussing.
I heard you laugh at the bug buy, I believe.
Yeah, yeah, just how you have done every single part of the process. So
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm. So similarly, your dope merch, I think, is some of your like most popular merch. You've also been developing it for a while. So can you walk, and people are about it just notified at the top, so people are going to come back in and join. There we go. Here they come. Welcome back. Thank you for that. You know what? Let's give it 30 seconds and chop it up. Tell us about where you are sitting right now in Henna House.
Yeah, so this is our studio space in the house, and we have art all over the house from ourselves, but also other artists that we adore their work and work with as well. And so I'm in a part of the studio that includes my art, but also some plants, and we also have a lot of plants all over the house. So I think I chose the perfect little center space.
Mm-hmm. If you had to guess, how many plants would you say we have? Because I did a count recently.
Oh, I think between us we might have close to 40 or like 35, something like that. What do you think? More? We also, oh right, we just brought some plants in from outside, so the number has gone up again.
They're multiplying. We have about 75.
No way.
We'll do a walkthrough. They multiply.
That's awesome.
Okay. Now let's move folks back in here. Apologize. Wi-Fi should be strong. Good to go. We were talking about your products and how you develop them from start to finish. And I wanted to go through your process of developing dope. How did it start and what does it become?
So when we go back and kind of almost remove henna, or go to the origin of how henna came about, it's the fine art side, it's the graphic design side. So earlier
Mm-hmm.
you showed the image, it's the original drawing. It was a strip that I did. I don't remember if it was with the intention to create a design that was going into the word dope or something, but it started from a drawing. That drawing went digital and it went into the word, and even the word design itself has now actually, this is like the second version of it that I've been using for the last couple of years. And dope to me is definitely something that is so New York. I say it all the time. I say it even more now, more than I already say. And to me it's an energy thing. It's like when you say something's dope, you're acknowledging it on the highest energy level. And it's something that I hear so much in New York, but also a lot of like urban cities. So for me it was really an homage to the city that raised me, but also like on a positive dope level, really acknowledging like positive energy, and then also bringing and incorporating the styles of Mendi and henna. So
Mm-hmm.
all of that combines together into this one design that you see now, that has been on shirts and tank tops and sweaters and tote bags, sweatpants, all sorts
Mm-hmm.
of things.
Mm-hmm. And those of you watching, if you see anything here that catches your eye, you want to learn more about it, Naty, can you tell people the best way that they can follow up with you?
Absolutely, and obviously at the end of this, you'll definitely be able to tell. But you can find all of my links through the link tree on my bio on my Instagram. Also, when the pictures are up, you'll see them on the little corner. Those are my websites. The websites link to my work and my Etsy shop. So I primarily use Etsy for all my items, but I always have a lot more art that I haven't shared yet on there. So if anyone was ever interested in any of the pieces that I have already painted, or commissions, or particular projects that include other items, things like that, by all means, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm human, I'm approachable, I'm very quick to respond sometimes.
Boundaries, it's good to have them.
Boundaries.
Yeah,
Don't message me in the morning.
not before coffee.
Yes.
So if you've jumped in and you know me or you know Naty, what you might not know is that we live together. We share a home that has become kind of just a hub of artistic, womanly energy. And I've been able to watch and really gain inspiration from you and how you approach your art and how you're an entrepreneur, because it's a dive I've just recently taken. So just straight up, what advice would you give to emerging artists? What are common mistakes you see people making in approaching art as a career?
Well, I learned so much from so many of my own mistakes. And I think one of the things that lacks in the attempt and the desire to become a professional at anything, or even an entrepreneur at anything, is that you have to apply to so many opportunities. Think of it like casting a net when you're fishing. You're going to get so many no's. And so you have to, if you want your brand to grow, you want your work to grow, you might initially end up in a lot of the networking opportunities. You're growing your network. And sometimes certain creatives, they have the most talent, that everything is perfect, but they don't market themselves. They have a fear, or maybe this resistance to look like a newbie. And the thing is that you have to go out there and make the mistakes. It's there where you learn the lessons. It's there where you get the wisdom. It's there where you learn what's working and what's not working. So it's almost, you have to do it. You have to do the work if you want to be a working artist, or a working creative, or a professional at any capacity. You still show up at a corporate job on 9 to 5, and you say you clock in, you do the work. If you're not doing the work, you get let go. So the same thing, if you're trying to work for yourself, if you are not showing up to your work, you will not have work. So how do you get work as an entrepreneur? I have to look. I spend so much time looking for work opportunities all over the place. And initially, when I
Yeah.
wasn't full time to be with, I was always doing other side creative work or working a lot with children. And in those realms as well, networking was going on, finding a way to grow my as a person, to grow as a professional. And so it's really due to all of those experiences, those mistakes, you learn boundaries, you learn better ways to communicate. Even to this day, I'm learning better ways to communicate, better ways to do my work. And so I think one of the biggest things is like when people want something, they're not doing the work to get there. And so you have to just sit down, you have to create boundaries, you have to be disciplined. If you really want it, it's on you. And it's the same thing, like say you have a fitness goal or diet goals, no one's going to either feed yourself the calories or cut the calories for you. You have to make that decision, and it comes from such a deep internal place. You make that choice. And so to acknowledge that we have that choice and that power within us, then that's where the opportunities and that's where the magic comes from.
Yes. Yeah. Boom.
Boundaries, yes. I remember one of the first times I started doing henna professionally, my rates were very different. I didn't know what my worth was. I didn't know how to value myself nor my work. I really thought it was horrible. And I went to the Bronx for a $20 hand tattoo, and I didn't have a travel fee. And I remember it took 2 hours to get there, 2 hours to come back, and the time that I spent there. And I was thinking, I can't do it this way. But this is something I do so bad. So how do I survive off this art? And so to really push forward, like, don't take that as a failure. Take that as this is the way that it won't work. We have to find a way how to work. And one of the biggest things that when I started was, you know, in school, you don't really, at least when I was in school, we weren't really being taught to become entrepreneurs. We were being taught, you go to school, you graduate, you're going to get this office career, end of story. And so I didn't have the information or the knowledge to tap into, well, how do I become self-employed? How do I do this the right way? And so, initially, I found myself asking a lot of questions without shame, all kinds of questions. It didn't matter. I said, how do you do this? I was asking all these other professionals that were inspiring to me. Is like, hey, what do you do when this happens? What do you do here? Da, da, da. So a lot of questions. I think questions are really empowering. Get yourself those mentors, tap in, or subscribe and pay for classes, for entrepreneurship workshops. There's so many of those going on right now, maybe even more than ever before, especially as we are in this realm of becoming more and more remote by force and for safety reasons. It actually has allowed a lot of people to actually work remote, which is what they wanted to do for a long time anyway.
Yeah. And we have a question here which flows beautifully. You know, you went from going to the Bronx to do a $20 henna to like being featured in Vogue, you know, amongst other things. So part of how you got there was the vehicles you used to market: Etsy, website, social media, word of mouth. Can you share your process of how you drive those vehicles, particularly social media, since that's the platform we're gathering in today?
You know, social media to me is kind of like people Google. And when, you know, I've used social media a lot for things I was searching for. And whether that was on Facebook, a lot of the groups and events, you just sit down and browse a location and you see what events are popping up. The same thing you would do with like Eventbrite or Google, just go and search for events. So the same way a hashtag is in essence a search bar, and you can find a lot of things on there. It's been through hashtags, it's been through different artist collectives where and those are just two examples of where networking but also opportunities presented themselves, but also a way of people to find me. So now as an artist, and I realized that's when I let go of the resistance of like joining Instagram many years ago, was, oh, this can become a portfolio for me. of course having a website is important, of course having other media like social online presence is important, but utilize these social media platforms, these social platforms. These are
Mm-hmm.
great platforms to meet people, to meet other human beings. And so if we just use it to look at only Hollywood and we can't reach the people, then what exactly are we doing? We're just watching. So why not have human connections? I've met, yes, exactly.
Shout out DJ Natasha
Like,
Diggs.
that to connect with other individuals. And also, I am such a big advocate. I'm not only an artist and a professional, I'm a human being. And not only is this screen here, but there's a human right here and we can talk. So
Yeah.
that's huge for me, is to become like remove this other wall and be approachable, but also be like, you know, communicate with others, reach out, that people are still sharing their like the things they're going through. It's still a very authentic platform. It doesn't have to be only one way. So it is very important for us to utilize that for not only our arts, but to support other artists. And so it's a great way to connect. But like I said, people Google. So I definitely use these platforms for those things. It's a great way to share my work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's true. Like-minded energies, people will find each other. And you know this, but a fun fact is I met Naty. I met you when I took a student to a festival in Bushwick, and I saw there was
Yeah.
henna. You know, I sometimes don't get henna, but I was down to get it from you. We bought a henna cone, and then I needed a roommate. I put it up on Craigslist, get an email, Google the name, find out we've been, you know, it's my Instagram friend, Naty by nature. And now we live together.
I think it's amazing. Henna has been such an amazing portal for me and a blessing, and such a big part of my healing. So I find it ironic, but not really, that we meet in such a way, like at a block party, where yes, I'm in networking mode and also just connecting with other people, but then just randomly on an ad like that with no photos and not knowing the name, and just going on that whim, the fearless whim of trying to get an opportunity, right? And just say, hey, you have nothing to lose, you might as well try. And then it just, look at that, I knew her and met her through henna. That's amazing to me. And I've met like people that have become friends to me and mother figures to me from pursuing my passion, something that I was so terrified to do so long ago. So it's really interesting that when you decide that there's something you want to do and you go with all your force, look at how doors open themselves up for you. And that's really, like, you would say irony, but I really think it's just like part of synchronicity. It's exactly the alignment of where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, and I know I've been experiencing synchronicities more and more over the last 2 years, over the last few months. I see you experiencing them. What do you think people are drawn to when they come into our space? It's a space we've created together. Because people come and they want to keep coming.
Time again, right? That, oh wow, the energy here feels so beautiful. The energy is so peaceful. I think you know, it's interesting how we don't really see too much art in too many homes. And so that already, like, if we understand as artists ourselves, but also the artists that we are friends with and artists that we work with, how much energy and love really goes into these creations, then imagine all the energy that we have on our walls just from the artwork itself. And then not only that, we're really intentional throughout the years about kind of creating, like curating our space. So other energy, like the plants that we have everywhere, our little altar when you walk in, the smell of incense that you smell here, sometimes the smell of food, you know, it feels like home. And it's interesting how in New York City, not everyone lives with their family, right? And not everyone has the opportunity to make their home really their home. It's kind of like a dormitory setting. So I think we are so lucky to have the space that we have, because we actually get the opportunity to make it feel like a home. And so when people come in, they feel that, and it's just from the 360 of everything they're looking at, what they're feeling. And I think it's also what we have done for ourselves. We want to make sure that this is where we come and take our layers off and really just feel comfortable there. So I think that absolutely speaks louder than just us. It's felt.
Yeah, and people have been able to gather here. What has been like a highlight for you, an event that you have hosted or participated in or been a part of here at Henna House?
Oh, one of my favorite events that you did, and it was a series, and I'm so sad that it had to stop for a little while now. Treats and Beats. It was so much fun. We had live music going on, participation from the crowd. We had treats like food, other libations. It was like home, but like home for everybody. And it was so cool because it was just like, the best part of it was really the improv of it. We had the general structure of it, and the rest was really how everyone was going to like participate and flow with it. So an open mic kind of essence, the conversations, the meeting amongst other people, the getting to vibe more with your friends. Oh, you're breaking bread. Oh, it's a nice getaway and unplug from your working day. All levels of creatives and industries that showed up here. I really loved it. It was so much fun. And I never could imagine that I would have that many people in the house. So it was also a great experience for me to also release, like having control all the time and trusting. So it makes our relationship stronger, and as we both like work, but then they continue to benefit each other. So that's one of my favorite events that have happened here. We've also done I've done these like, oh, there's another really beautiful one I like with this organization called This Is Jane Project, and it was essentially really deeply beautiful healing space for women that have gone through, or people identifying as women or non-binary, that have gone through traumas in their life, and how cannabis has helped them in their healing or in their coping, in their growing, in their evolving. And I was so grateful to be able to host our space for that event. But in essence, it also really it was so helpful for myself, and I would think for you as well. And also I got to meet a lot of people through that, and amazing survivors.
Yeah, who we stayed connected
The
with.
growth as an artist and as a person.
Yeah, I think that sense of home. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There was a lag. Okay, let's see if
we've got a lot of events here.
We are. Yes. Huh? Yes, we have a lot of events. Your art pop-up, dinners, bonfires, music. Mm-hmm. You know, and we feel safe. People feel safe here, which is why we're able to have items that, you know, we feel safe promoting, but wouldn't be able to everywhere.
Right.
Yeah. And so with that, I want to kind of return back to this idea of social media and your art, because there's times when your art is being censored, or or you're actually seeing the way your art is being consumed, and it's gendered. Could you share kind of the way you see your art being consumed and the challenges you've had with that?
You know, it's really interesting because I never really imagined that the body would become one of my canvases as an artist. And through that journey, I ended up, and I still do, help a lot of people who are going through body image issues. And so somehow, through a temporary art form, for a moment, or maybe even it's a huge paradigm shift for that person, they all of a sudden love the part of their body that they felt so much shame about. But why do they feel so much shame about it? Society has made them feel ashamed about their body, as if it's not right. And one of the biggest reasons that I left corporate was it really went against my beliefs on like what we should be really telling humanity and society about how we feel about ourselves, really. And so fashion marketing, you get asked to remove a birthmark for the sake of selling a product, when in reality is like, what's wrong with everybody being so unique, why aren't we embracing ourselves as the natural ways that we are? Because even supermodels don't look the way that we perceive them, and I worked in that realm before. So here, you know, now you come and bring an art form into it where it's temporary and it's making people cry and feeling so good, and it helps them, you know, not have to worry about this when they go on vacation or something like that. And because of that, then I work on all different parts of bodies. And when I'm showing art and something sacred, it ends up getting sexualized.
Yes.
And it's so unfortunate because it's something that is happening all the time, all the time. From when I was a kid to still to this very day, I could be walking outside in sweatpants and I'm getting hollered at. Whereas I'm sharing my artwork and it might just so happen to be on a body, and then it's getting crazy comments all about, oh, sexy and et cetera, or the images are getting reported. And to me, I look at it, this is art. And I'm sorry, but women's bodies are going to be curvy and they're going to be beautiful and they're going to be art. And so why have we been taught to look at it that one way? But instead it's like, here I am talking to adults and trying to reprogram the way that they see themselves and feel about themselves, but also talking to the mother of the daughter who's sitting there saying that you can't do this. And so it's like, wait, who told you you can't do this? Where is that shame and the limitation coming from?
Yeah.
So that's the huge thing as women, right? The amount of oppression that we have gone through all different kind of cultures, but just basically because of our gender is telling us like we can't do these things. And so for me to pursue my passion full time was an act of rebellion, was an act of self-love, was an act of acceptance. And if I'm doing those things that scare me and intimidate me and have been told that I cannot do, then that's when it's my obligation to share that forward with other, not only women, but also men. And so I think it's a great question that you asked that, because it's constantly like, it's an ongoing thing. And just like, I think you mentioned social media. And so, yes, I use my image to become part of my microphone, right? And to speak these true messages. And ironically, or not ironically, they get the most feedback. But look at social media, when you even pay for promoting of a post, what kind of audience does it bring? I'm trying to promote my artwork and it's bringing a 98% male audience. Why is Instagram choosing that as the ideal audience? It's crazy.
And it's something
and
I've learned from you.
Yeah, and then more so, like, even then people think that this is only for women. It's like, no, it's for men too. So now here I am showing topless images of men, but you don't get the same censorship. And all I'm trying to do is talk about art and accepting the body and loving the body and creativity. And you see how it's perceived so differently.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you've experienced that with your body art and also other forms of art. And those of you who are jumping in, like, you know, you have done fine art, merchandise, logo design, graphic design, murals, which I want to now shift into. One of the ways I see you replenishing yourself and filling your cup back up is by going into nature and traveling.
Yeah.
Why is that so important for you and for artists to do?
Well, for me, nature is my recharge. Nature is my respite, you know. It's my therapy. So it's the place where I go and breathe. And ever since I was a kid, I was always immersed into nature. You can never get me inside the house. I was always playing outside. And I'm lucky to have grown up in a space where it was right before the internet came out. We didn't have a computer when I was really young. And so just like nature became that source of inspiration as I grew up, because it was like a nostalgic space for me. And so I think it's really important for anyone to fill your cup with the thing or things that fill you, the things that make you happy. It doesn't have to always be work, 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 work. But where does your inspiration come from? So some people love to go to museums. Great. Some people love to go out and go to eat with friends, spend time with friends. Great. Reading, TV. There's inspiration in everything. For me, a huge part of it is nature. And like it goes back to when we first were speaking today about really the connection of human nature and the way that we learn from the four elements of nature. So
Yes.
for me, it's always like, oh, I go out there and I'm looking at the way the tree is still. I'm like, oh, stillness. I get it. That's what I should be doing. Let me slow down a little bit and not, not freak out, anxiety, all these pressures of who's telling me to do all these things all the time. But look, nature is still growing. So
Yes.
that's for me, been huge for me is nature. And then the plant that I use in my body art, henna, is a plant. Hagua is a fruit. So here I am now using actual ingredients from nature to practice my art. And I find it amazing because then also where nature for me is my medicine. And when we go back to taking things to a natural level, look at us using nature, applying it onto the body for the sake of art and adornment. And little do many people know it's medicine and it's therapy and it's stillness and it's a moment of breath. So it's bigger than just that little tattoo for the whatever the reason is,
Yeah. I'm gonna let those words sit for a moment.
Yeah. I think even for you, the times that I've done the art on you, it makes you think of family. It's a lot of self-acceptance within your body. It's an adornment, it's an enhancement. And I know that not only do you feel that, it's been the same for me when my henna friends adorn on me. I love receiving it. And so I know that's the same thing for everyone. And when we go back thousands of years ago and looking at hieroglyphics, and we're looking it was used as makeup. It was used as hair dye. It was used as adornment, as self-love practice. So more of that. And really, we're using nature. It was before all these synthetic things came out to alter the way that we look. It was more an enhancement and like embracing the way that we are.
Yeah, I think when you engage with it, you definitely have a sense of care. I definitely feel cared for when you are giving me my designs. And those of you who are watching, here's my latest. This is hagua. This is not henna. It's a different material. So yes, I love it. Now is the time, those of you who are watching, if there's questions you want to be answered, we will have time in a few minutes for any other questions from the audience. One of my favorite facts about you is that you have done several murals, and actually more murals abroad than in the States. So I thought we could go through them, and you could just share a little bit about your what your muraling journey has looked like.
So one of the first introductions into doing mural work was actually in New York. I was a volunteer for New York Cares, and I loved the painting projects. And this was before I went professional as an artist. And one time I went a little further into, let me become a team leader. And so I created all these sketches for a school that was going to get different artwork throughout the school, and I kind of facilitated and led a whole mural team. I didn't know anything about it. So that was one of the earlier introductions. And really, when you are pursuing like your passions, you gotta fake it till you make it. You show anything you can to prove that you are capable of doing and achieving these things. So that led me to receiving a lot of opportunities in Puerto Rico to paint murals out there with amazing art collectives and locals. And those opportunities led me to receive them here in New York. And again, the one that you just showed from the school was done, I believe, last summer in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. And it was through someone that I met doing henna who asked if I do murals. I said, yes, I do. Yeah. And so it's funny how kind of like those connections. And then the most recent one was actually in Puerto Rico again. and it was in the beginning of the pandemic, and it's another amazing farm that I've worked with and met before. It's an Ayurvedic farm, all about holistic healing. And they, when you think of Ayurveda, look at the source of where it comes from, India. So things like a mandala, were so, like, of course it made sense to utilize a mandala, and that's actually a water tank, and the water tank ends up feeding the whole farm. So there's a lot of sustainability and permaculture being used in that farm, and it drives again into my passions of what I like to do with nature and sustainability and wasting less. So it was an honor to work with them. And also in the beginning of the pandemic, where you're like, oh my god, so working on art was really helpful to keeping me very present. So that's the latest mural that I've done, but I've also done other private ones here in Brooklyn, in homes, in studios, and always accepting more.
On ceilings.
I know there was a
yeah. One of my favorite series of yours is your vinyl series. Yeah, and so I'm going to, those of you who are watching, this, I've never seen anyone do this before. I also get to see people walk in and look at it and be like, is that a vinyl? Yes, it is. Tell us about what inspired you to do this and how you charge the elements, how you capture the elements in this series.
So when I sit down and do extensive research on learning this art form and looking at henna artisans, I really wanted to find something that I hadn't seen done before. And in the art world, it's almost impossible to find that until I realized, oh my gosh, I love music. And there was a vinyl record sitting next to me. I was like, that's what I'm going to do. But as I started painting on it, the series and the meaning of it really evolved for me. And so this ongoing series, of which I've done 10 pieces now and only have one remaining at the moment, is called Substance Beyond Surface. And so when you look at the pieces up close, and just like henna tattoos, when you first do it, the paste, it dries raised. And so you see substance. But just like us, we are more than our surface. So much of my work is inspired not only by nature, but also by people and my own meditations and the things that I dive deep into. And I'm a Scorpio and I'm all about the depth. So I sit into asking the hows and the whys. And so I know that we are more than just our surface. And again, when we go back to, oh, look at how the body is perceived. And I'm like, but I'm more than that. So here came a series that is talking about the substance beyond just the thing that we see, the book cover, right? But then I incorporate meditation and music and nature into my inspirations, but into these pieces. So music is like these frequencies and wavelengths that not only help us, but also inspire us and add to a vibration. And so the same thing with nature, the same thing with color, the same thing with repetitive patterns. It's all fully meditation. And the thing is that when I create these pieces, I'm going deep into a very intuitive space and just learning to trust intuition and trust flow and go there. And so the center pieces of many of the vinyl records are from photos or places that I've taken of nature or feel inspired by or calm when I see them. And so the center is nature, and then the patterns, the vibrations of ourselves outside of that. And the same way, like beats in music, right? It's a rhythm. And so it's also the rhythm that we are as humans. There's constantly an ebb and flow in society. And so sometimes the vibrations are shaky and sometimes they're super fluid. So all about a meditative like aspect into these pieces. So I love creating them. I have a lot more of them planned coming out in the next quarantine.
No, I love them. And so we had one question from Maya, and then I wanted to just go through a few of your fine art pieces for our final portion. Maya asks, question, Jaguar or henna, which do you like more and why?
I get this question a lot, and I also offer the combination of the two, which we call hengua. And I can't quite say I have a favorite over any of the three, because when you learn to work with all of them, they're all beautiful. And they all show up on all complexions as opposed to like popular belief. And so I like utilizing all of them because number one, they are still nature and they're ancient. So every time I'm using them, I'm thinking of history, right? And so when you learn how to work with that medium, then you master it, then it's fun to work with. But in terms of like flow and consistency, I really love working with henna and hengua. It's the first ones that I learned, and there's something that is so beautiful in the way that it smells, the way that it looks, the way that it dries. But I'm not mad that people are choosing Jaguar because it is darker and it does last longer. So it's really cool in the next goal that I've been working on for a little while now, which is really the transition to going permanent. So for me to work with Jaguar, it's so strong, it's so potent that I treat it with so much more seriousness, as my clients have seen. And it's again another practice for me to like slow down and look at the details and go from there. So I love them all. I don't really have a favorite. I think the fact that I just get to do it is my favorite thing.
Yeah, and I think this is an example of Jaguar, and this is of henna, right? Jaguar?
No, they're actually both Jaguar. They're just different, made a little different. One was a little drier, one was wetter. Ashley, she had Jaguar belly.
Wow, yeah. Beautiful. I mean, I've loved learning about the differences, but it is that's a challenging question. They have different benefits and purposes as well.
It's so hard to work with Jaguar at first because it's a gel and it has a retraction. And the way that you learn to work with henna, you have to almost relearn the art all over again. And so a couple of years ago, when Jaguar came into my life, I wasn't that neat with it because I was learning, oh, it has a retraction. I have to work slowly. I have to create certain elements like in a different way. So you kind of create outlines before you fill them in. Whereas henna, it's so thick and creamy. You could just, boom, you do it and you drop it and it's fine. So it's also just like the regions in which where you work in, the elements of nature, humidity, how much it affects each one of those mediums. And so you're constantly and like, be ready for anything, and it might suck.
Yeah. It's the semi-permanence of it that is so attractive and can also keeps people wanting to come back and get more and more and more because it allows you to adapt. It allows you
even
to adapt.
myself. I mean, look, I love having the art form on myself. It's, you know, it's definitely adornment. It's walking marketing, but then I feel naked without having something on my skin. It's weird, but it makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. With that, let's do a little art flashback because we're lucky to have art that you created years ago and also your most recent work. So I thought we could do a little time lapse.
Ooh.
Time lapse. Now, I'll display the piece, and those of you watching, if you have any questions about the art or even just want to drop a word of the mood you feel when you look at it. Yes.
Wait, do you want me
to tell us a word that you feel when you look at this, and then you can tell us about the piece as other people drop their mood word. So again, those of you watching, what one word, feeling, or mood do you feel when you look at this? And Naty will tell us a bit of the background on the piece at the same time.
Magic.
Love it.
So this is a portrait of an artist by the name of Fabiola Jean-Louis, and I met her many years back at an event in the Andrew Friedman House in the Bronx called the Witches Ball. And she was sharing her work there, and I remember like, who is this witch? Oh my God. And never am I inspired to like, can I take a picture of you? And I don't paint portraits, like, And I was so compelled to paint her. And so it had been something for many years that, like, not many years, maybe a couple of years on and off, that I was working on this portrait, and it was very challenging because it's not my forte. But again, just so inspired by her energy and her work that I had to complete it. So for me, it was like every time I look at this painting, I think of the powerful witch that she is, but also as a woman and a woman of color, Haitian born, living in New York, and an amazing, inspiring artist. So for me, it was like, wow, I get to paint someone so inspiring, and I can tell their story, but also she's a woman. Like, that's important to
Yeah.
talk about. She's a creative. That's important to talk about. So that was really the inspiration behind this piece. And I love what you guys are saying. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember the last part, I remember watching you do the sweep of the veil with a bit of
Oh,
black. Yeah, and seeing you finish this and knowing it had been,
he had
you've
like
been waiting
made it
to
with
return.
all the people. It was just
Mm-hmm.
amazing.
Yeah. All right. Same thing, folks, and love it, Tia, and what my art teacher sees. Thank you. Um, what word, what do you feel, your mood when you look at this? I'll add to Twilight. Mine's Twilight.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cute. What do I think when I think of this piece? What's the word? I have so many words. Cosmic, uh,
Mm-hmm.
real, collective consciousness, breath,
Mm,
space, dreams. I like that. Definitely
yeah.
dreamy. Oh, an evening hike. I like that. Mystery. Ooh. Northern Lights. Very much inspired by them. Yes.
Yeah.
Bliss. I like that. These are
I love this.
awesome.
I love this
I did
game.
a lot. I decided to dive into a medium I wasn't so strong at, and it was watercolor. And I
Yeah.
just wanted to learn really with it better. So during the early months of quarantine, I was watching tutorials, and I started painting these different series of watercolor flowers and things like that. I had one here. And it was, again, a really beautiful form of meditation and slowing down, keeping my mind busy. But then you look at these images, and they're all about nature and
Mhm.
color, and all the words that everyone is saying. So yes, I'm so glad that that resonates through the work
Yeah.
itself, because that's what it's meant to feel.
Yeah. And
Thank you.
this will be the third and final one, and it's one of my favorites. This piece, folks, that I'm about to show, and the first piece, the portrait, are both on display as well in Long Island City. So if you're interested in
Yeah.
seeing them in person, get in touch with one of us. What jumps out in your spirit as you look at this? Our beautiful audience.
It's so funny.
Chili.
Why have I forgotten what I've called this piece?
And
um
the energy of posture.
yes. So yes, this piece, and in order to look at this piece the right way, you should definitely rotate your head, because I tried to fit this into the IG live. So the actual way that it would show would be horizontal. uh, and For me, I think one of the biggest things when it comes to this piece was meditation, for sure. So tranquility, yes, absolutely. That's how it should resonate.
Beautiful.
What do you
Well,
think?
um, gosh, to me, honestly, these and your mandala pieces in general, including the vinyls, to me express so much patience and patience, slowing
Patience.
down.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, a lot of patience.
that's important.
And earth, like this reminds me of the rings of a tree when you cut it
Mm,
and you kind of you see time. That's
wow.
mm-hmm,
I love when people interpret pieces. I don't really think there's a right or wrong. I can have my view of it, my perspective of it, but whatever you see is what you see, and
mm-hmm,
I can tell you different, but you're going to see what you see. So I absolutely appreciate and respect that you see that, because then, yes, I actually see it too. And that's awesome.
Yeah. And you are awesome. And I love you.
Love you too, girl.
Naty by nature. If you have any final words you want to leave, end this talk with, and then I will come down and say goodbye together.
I'm so grateful I finally made it on the show. I
was
love
saving you for the end. I've been saving you for the end.
Yeah. While you mentioned my pivoting efforts, I think it's been amazing to see how fast you went into doing these talks. And I think it really helped a lot of artists and a lot of the viewers, and because the conversations were always uplifting and silly and fun, and just like, hey, it took you into the moment. And I want to definitely say I'm so proud of you for sticking to something that you're literally almost 100 episodes into. That's amazing. And this is all in less than a year, in less than 7 months. And for someone who is still relatively new into entrepreneurship, this is what I talk about when I'm telling people, like, hey, if you want something, you got to do it. And you've done it now 67 times, and it's gotten better and better and better every single time. I think that's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
period.
so much.
I don't have the amount of patience to go and edit videos. So props to you for learning that, because
yeah, well, my intern helped. What my art teacher sees says, thank you so much for this. It's been great to meet you and hear the great words you shared.
Thanks.
Yeah, we have someone who said, thank you so much for this talk. And then so you guys can see, this is special what I'm doing right now, but you'll get the other perspective.
You're gonna see and it's gonna echo.
Yum, 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 yum. This is our home. There she is. Inception.
Whoa.
Okay. All right, guys, say bye to Naty by nature. And Naty, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time and your energy. And we hope you have a great week, and stay positive, stay focused. The world has not stopped. It is just shifting. Keep on working towards what makes your heart happy.
Yeah.
Con mucho y
follow,
mucho.
follow,
Amor.
yeah, mucho. Follow us at Henna House BK, Naty by nature, Alpha. We do things collaboratively, we do things separately, but we support each other constantly. Our work is intricately connected because we live together. We take care of each other. Yes. Love. See you downstairs.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye. Say bye to Natalia, everyone. There it is. If you didn't catch the first section, it is saved in the IGTV. Natalia is a huge inspiration and for me, and an exemplary model of an entrepreneur and an artist. So thank you guys so much. Tommy, yes, this was an exclusive heART Talk for 1 hour plus because it was worth it. I'll see you guys next week.